We haven't been upholding our amana of taking care of Muslim children in foster care. So they enter foster care. It could be that in their home they're experiencing of neglect, substance abuse, or physical abuse. It could be homelessness.
How does a life of a foster care child look in a Muslim home versus a non-Muslim home?
They can't advocate for themselves, so who's going to be their voice? I had a 12 and a 13-year-old. They hadn't eaten chicken or meat in over a month because the family that they were with wasn't Muslim, and they were requesting halal meat and they weren't given that. So they might not know what their dietary restrictions are. They would like to pray 5 times a day, how to celebrate Ramadan and Eid. If a girl is observing hijab, they might not know like the rulings of hijab. Because if the Muslim child sees that you understand them, that's going to help with the relationship.
What's the mental state of these children?
Oh, they've all been through trauma. Maybe this is their first time experiencing like a stable, loving home. They need somebody to show up for them.
Can you go through the process of your first foster child?
She came and she lived with us for a little over 2 years. She told us that she would make dua every night to Allah to find her a Muslim family. She was able to graduate high school. My husband taught her how to drive. She got married. She has 2 kids now, and I was fortunate enough to be like at her first delivery. You know, it's interesting, one of the du'ats that she made, for Allah to let the angels welcome you in heaven the way that you welcomed me into your home.
How does it feel to know that you were someone's answered prayer? This episode is about a forgotten part of the Muslim community. There are Muslim kids that are removed from their homes under circumstances that are not in their hands. And these kids struggle, and they struggle a lot, especially when it comes to their faith. Because if they get placed with non-Muslim parents, who's going to make sure that the kids eat halal? Who's going to make sure that the girl observes hijab in the way that she wants to? Who's going to make sure that the kids are praying 5 times a day? And that's where a lot of the work that Ranya does comes into play. And Ranya has hosted foster kids for the past 10 years now. So she's about to explain to us how this forgotten group of society is operating and what we could do to help. And look, this is the first episode of the New Year's, Not From Here 2026. If you're not subscribed yet, please do. We're going to try to make this one of the biggest shows on the planet, but I need your help. And that starts with that little task of just subscribing to the episode, liking it, and letting me know what you think in the comments. And as always, with that being said, let's get this show started.
Welcome aboard Middle East Airlines.
والمتوجهة إلى طيران الشرق الأوسط يرحب مدينة تونس العربية.
Ranya, welcome to Not From Here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Ranya, the way we usually start the show off is self-introduction on your part. But the way that I like the guests to usually introduce themselves is the way that they see themselves. So aside from how the world knows you and the closest people to your life know you, when you look in the mirror at night, who is that person?
A servant of Allah.
Why is that important?
Because that's our purpose here.
If someone's just tuning in, watching the first 3 minutes of this episode, and they don't know why they should tune until the end, what would you say?
I would say the children in foster care are all of our children's, and it's an amane that we will be held accounted for. And the least we can do is raise awareness and remember them and not forget about them.
So if we were to paint this picture together here because I think what we're about to talk about is going to drop a lot of jaws per se, because this is foreign to many, many people. Why do these Muslim foster kids specifically, why are they forgotten?
Because we haven't been doing a good job of keeping them at the forefront of what we do and in our lives. And it's easy to kind of turn a blind eye to, maybe the reasons why people enter foster care. And it's easy to kind of paint a brush over everything and make it seem like everything is fine, right? Everything's butterflies and roses and rainbows, but the reality is different. And the reality is that we haven't been really upholding our amana of taking care of these children.
What's the state of these children?
Unfortunately, for the most part, when it comes to the Muslim community, we've kind of forgotten about them. And I don't think that's intentional. I think it's just we haven't done a good enough job of raising awareness. So once you know, you know. But until then, we need to keep raising awareness about the kids and what their situation is.
You said something about people don't know how and why these kids go into foster care. So maybe let's start there. Why do they end up in foster care?
So they enter foster care through no fault of their own, right? They're children. So it could be that in their home they're experiencing abuse, neglect. It could be substance abuse or physical abuse. It could be homelessness. I had a girl stay with us because her mom was a single parent and her mom was experiencing homelessness. And so her daughters entered foster care. It could be that they are unaccompanied refugee minors from different countries around the world, and they've been separated from their families back home, and they need a temporary home until they can either be reunited with their families or until they reach independence.
Interesting. And how is life like for them inside of foster care?
So that really depends on where they're placed.
Okay.
So, if it's a Muslim child and they're placed with a Muslim home, that's ideal. But for the most part, in Michigan alone, we have about 240 Muslim children in foster care, and we only have about 10 licensed homes. So the vast majority of those kids are either in group homes, if they're older, or they're in homes with families of other faiths.
What are group homes?
Group homes are where they have like several kids that will be placed in a home together. And it's a home that is supervised or run by one of the local agencies, foster care agencies. So it's the agencies that do the licensing for the homes. I'm licensed through Samaritas. There's 2 agencies in Michigan. I don't know how much you want to get into this, but
we'll get into it.
So in Michigan, we're very fortunate that we have the option of refugee foster care and domestic foster care. So there's 2 agencies in Michigan that license for refugee foster care. Not every state has licensing for refugee foster care. In Michigan, it's Samaritas and Bethany Christian Services. One is in Lansing, Samaritas is in Lansing, and Bethany Christian Services is in Grand Rapids. So we're licensed through Samaritas, me and my husband, and we chose Samaritas because if you're licensed for refugee foster care, then you can also do domestic, and we wanted to be able to have that flexibility.
How does a life of a foster care child look in a Muslim home versus a non-Muslim home? Because you said it was ideal if it was a Muslim home.
Yeah.
So what's that alternative? How are they different?
So, there are some really wonderful families that are not Muslim, right? That are licensed and they, are really wonderful and have the same intention of supporting children, vulnerable children, and are very welcoming in their home. But if they're not Muslim, then they don't know how to support a Muslim child. So they might not know what their dietary restrictions are. They might not know that they would like to pray 5 times a day, how to celebrate Ramadan and Eid. If a girl is observing hijab, they might not know like the rulings of hijab. And for many foster youth, it's hard for them to be their own advocate. So it's hard for them to speak up and say, well, this is what I need to practice my faith. So one of the things that we do at our organization, I know we haven't talked about that yet, but one of the things that we do that's really important is we provide educational workshops for foster care agencies and for foster parents on how to best care for a Muslim child in foster care. So we do try to educate these families, and for the most part, the families are very inclined to have a relationship with us, with Muslim Foster Care Association, because they see that we're able to support them and that we're able to kind of fill in the gaps that they're not able to do themselves because, they're not Muslim and so they don't know these things.
What's the process of foster care? So let's say someone is homeless or they're from a home that there's drug abuse. What's the process from figuring out the kid is in such a home until getting to the eventual family?
So there are people that are mandated reporters. So that could be like, a teacher at school if they see something about a child that, a child is homeless, or if they, something is brought to their attention or abuse is brought to their attention, and then they report it. And it would be reported to CPS, Child Protective Services, and then they would go to the home and they would investigate. And then in their investigation, they would determine whether or not the child, for the safety of the child, if they need to be removed from the home. And if the child then is removed from the home, then they could be placed in like an emergency placement, very temporary, until they can find a long-term foster home.
So do the foster parents get to choose the child, or it happens at random?
No, you do. When you go through the licensing process, part of that application is you specifying what kind of a child or what characteristics you would be comfortable having in your home. So you could say if there's if you're open to both genders, or if you're only open to, having girls or boys, you can specify what age you're comfortable with, and also if you're comfortable with any special needs. So, and they're very honest with you. They will tell you what they know of the child. But sometimes when a child first enters care, then the agency doesn't know so much about the child to be able to share with you, the foster parent, but they will share what they know. And then it's up to the foster parent to decide, yes, I'm comfortable having the child placed in my home, or no, I don't think that's a good fit for my family.
I'll tell you two things about Detroit Park that happened today that makes me absolutely love going there. So number one, this episode was recorded later in the afternoon. Me and the guests didn't want caffeine. So of course they have tea, and they have amazing options for hot tea. So when you want to unwind and maybe you don't want caffeine, they have amazing options. The second thing is I sprained my MCL yesterday. The doctor told me not to put pressure on that leg. So obviously I'm going to grab the drinks, and I'm ordering on the app like I'd always tell you guys to do. And there's curbside pickup, so I didn't even have to leave the car. I got there, they brought me the drinks out, and I left. Convenience over convenience with a great product. That's what Detroit Perk is every single time. I have news for you. Mortgage Connections, you've heard me talk about them week after week, have officially become West Capital Lending, and they're growing really fast. If you're a licensed mortgage banker, this is actually a solid opportunity. You get access to high intent leads, cutting edge CRM, coaching from top producers, and you can work local or remote, whatever fits your lifestyle. Whether you want wholesale where you keep the majority, or you want retail where they send you the leads and all you have to do is close them, they have both. So if you're looking for the right fit, I think this might be it. I'll have all the details to contact them in the description of this episode so you could get started on your next career journey. Someone might assume that Thrive Physical Therapy just does physical therapy, but that's not true. They offer hijama, dry cupping, deep tissue massage, shockwave therapy, all in one place. So whether you're dealing with pain, stress, or just fatigue, this is the way to start your year off right. With a session at Thrive, you can book your first session through the link in the description of this episode. And let's get back to the show. Ranya, this is a little hard. Like, I'm finding it difficult to ask questions because it's very uncomfortable speaking about a child that, let me see which type of child I would like. And then there's this whole bunch of list of children that need a place to stay. But even asking like, hey, how do you pick? It's like it almost seems like I'm asking like, how would you pick your apples at the grocery store? In this very degrading way. The
hardest to place are teenage boys. Teenage boys are so difficult to place, and that's why so many of them will end up in group homes or residential placements, which are group homes. Yeah, because it's people, unfortunately, for the most part, don't feel comfortable accepting teenage boys. I mean, that's the reality. The vast majority of people want babies. They want a baby in their home. Because there is also the tract of fostering to adopt. And so sometimes people that are interested in adoption will become foster parents, and then in hope of having a baby placed with them. And then, it's a long process, but if the parental rights are eventually terminated, then that foster baby becomes eligible for adoption.
What's the difference between foster and adoption?
So foster care is a temporary. It's temporary. The goal in foster care is for the child to be reunited with their parents, to go back to their parents. So the hope is that the child is placed in a safe, licensed home while the parents can kind of figure out whatever the circumstances were that led the child to being removed from their home. So for example, if there was substance abuse, right, or homelessness or, neglect, whatever it is, the agency will work with the parents to try to get them to resolve the situation so that eventually the child can be placed back with their families. So that's the ideal scenario with foster care. But about half of the kids that enter foster care become eligible for adoption and don't go back to their families.
That's it?
Yeah.
So these broken homes stay broken?
If the child doesn't go back to them? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like I'm thinking if someone takes your kid out of the home, you would maybe rush to fix your situation to get your child back. But you're saying more than half don't go back, like they're eligible for adoption. That means the home is still broken.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
didn't
Or
fix it.
I wouldn't say the home is broken. I would say that the parents haven't resolved, whatever the issues are.
Mm. And is the process easy for the
To become
parents?
licensed?
I do want to know if it's easy for them to become licensed, but I want to know, but the question that I was asking was, is it easy if the parents resolve the issues at home, is it easy for them to get their child back or do they make it harder?
No, it's easy.
Okay.
They do want families to stay together. The purpose is to keep families together.
Okay.
Yeah. And foster parents need to know that when a child is placed with you, that the ultimate goal is to keep the family together. And in most cases, the child will have visitation with their parents. So as a foster parent, I would still be responsible to make sure, and of course with the agency's coordination and with their help, the child still sees their parents at least once a week. And there's certain hourly requirements for the child to visit with their parents.
Mm. What's the timeline that they give the parents to recover before they
That depends on the courts and on the judge, and
Oh.
that's completely out of the realm of the foster parent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the foster parent has no say in how long the child stays.
No. And the foster parent, you do always have a say. For example, if you realize that for whatever reason, the situation is not working well in your home, you can say, this is not working in my home. I need to have the child moved. So you can say that, or let's say you're going through some kind of an illness and you're saying I'm in a situation now where I'm not well enough to care for a foster child, then they would find a new home for the child.
What's the mental state of these children when they...
Oh, they've all been through trauma, just differing degrees of trauma. I mean, even just the fact of being removed from your family home, even if it's not a safe environment, there's still trauma attached to that. And then, of course, the issues that led them to foster care, there's trauma with that too. Yeah, so they've all definitely experienced trauma.
So it's trauma from the home and the state of the home, but then there's also trauma from detaching them from their parents. And then there's another trauma of you're in this completely new environment.
Yeah.
It's also traumatizing.
And then there's also
in a way.
the kids that come from other countries, right? And now they're placed. I mean, I had some children that they're not Muslim. They came from Central America and they were placed in our home and they were young. We had a few of those fostering cases. And, they don't speak the language. They're not familiar with the culture. And now they're in a stranger's home. So, and they're young, so they can't quite grasp what's happening. So even that has a lot of trauma associated with it.
Does that scare you as a foster parent?
What part?
Because you have a kid that is riddled with trauma. And he's staying at your home with your kids. I don't know, do thoughts of, okay, what if something bad happens?
Yeah, but I always look at it from the kid's perspective. I'm sure they're a lot more scared than I am.
Yes.
Yeah, because they're the vulnerable ones, and they're the ones in a new situation. Yeah.
Okay, but that fear that you don't like, are you not scared at all for your children to get hurt maybe, or I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud here.
I mean, it's not impossible, right? That something could happen. It's not impossible, but I still feel more compassion for the foster child and still feel that they're really the ones that are more vulnerable. Yeah.
'Cause
So I don't let that fear get to me from my end.
Because I'm thinking of it. The other day, I saw two cousins. One was older than the other, and one was getting a little more attention. And then the one that was getting least attention went and hit his younger cousin. And this is like both, you could say, healthy families, both
Yeah.
parents are present. So I'm thinking if in this case where like both households are healthy and then you have a kid attack another kid just for jealousy reasons.
Yeah.
What's the case if the kid is riddled with trauma in this new environment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you're worried about that, then you do have to be mindful of like your birth children that are already in your home, and what a good fit is for them. And the agency will tell you if there's a child that has a history of like violence or, physical violence, they'll let you know if they know.
Yeah.
But in some cases, they don't know. Yeah.
Wow. What made you want to go into all of this?
I had heard that there were, which, believe it or not, I mean, I was, born and raised in this country, and only as an adult did I really become aware of foster care. And did I really know that there was, that there were all these kids that needed homes. And it was something that really stuck with me. And I just felt strong conviction and felt really compelled that we had to do something. I felt that we didn't have an excuse to not do something. And, we're a stable home and we're, I think a good family. And I thought, well, if we don't do it, then who's going to do it? And I felt like we really didn't have an excuse. So I had to get my husband on board. And, there was some hesitation on his part. But I think once he got the experience of fostering, now he's a bigger proponent than I am.
So the way I see it, Ranya, is that a lot of people see a problem and they think that it's someone else's job to fix it. Generally in life, that's why the people that create things and that do things are less than the people that don't.
Yeah.
So you could have seen that problem or that could have been brought to your attention. You thought, haram, it's I hope they do well.
Yeah.
You could have said that.
Yeah.
No one would have told you anything if you hadn't gone through this path
Yeah.
and down that rabbit hole. I'm interested to know why do you think you didn't just say, oh, haram, that's okay.
I don't know. I think I really see them as our children. I mean, I would hate to think that, God forbid if there was, my children are older now, but if there was a time when, God forbid for whatever circumstances, my children entered foster care and I didn't have appropriate family around to care for my children. Well, then, if my kids ended up in foster care, who would take care of Ranya's kids? Would somebody welcome my kids to their home? Or would they say, no, she has, two boys and we don't want the boy, but we'll take the girl? Or, are they would somebody step up and care for my children? Because it's no fault of their own that they are in foster care. And to be honest with you, at the end of the day, there's also selfish reasons. I mean, I really truly believe that anything with reward is going to have sacrifice, right? And we live very comfortable lives. And it's okay to get out of our comfort zone. It's okay to sacrifice and to go through hardship. I think you need to really be able to get that reward. And, as Muslims, we believe that there is a lot of reward in caring for the vulnerable and caring for children and caring for orphans.
Can you go through the process of your first foster child process? How was that like for you?
Yeah, I think it's a really beautiful story. Well, we became licensed, and before we even received the license in the mail, the agency told us of a Muslim girl who was 15 who had been asking for a Muslim family. She was currently with a non-Muslim family, and she had been asking for a Muslim family. So We were the first Muslim family in Michigan to be licensed for refugee foster care because she was technically an unaccompanied refugee minor. So we agreed, and she came and she lived with us for a little over 2 years, about 2.5 years. And, you know, it was an incredible experience. She told us that she would make dua every night to Allah to find her a Muslim family. And so, subhanAllah, what a blessing that, you know, as soon as we became licensed, we welcomed her to our home. She told us that when she lived with a non-Muslim family, that she would tell them, and, you know, this is a 15-year-old, she would tell them, if anything happens to me, if I die, just find the Muslims because they'll know what to do with my body.
How sad.
Isn't that incredible that a 15-year-old would have, you know, those thoughts of, well, if I die, just find the Muslims. Ramadan was a very difficult time for her. Sometimes even eating, because of course she doesn't eat pork. So sometimes she didn't have, options available to her. Even maintaining her salah 5 times a day, because, not everybody understands the importance of that. If you're not Muslim, you might not understand the importance of that. So when she came to our home, alhamdulillah, she was able to graduate high school. She was able to, my husband taught her how to drive. And then, fast forward a few years later, she got married, and she got married in our home. It was during COVID, so it was very small, and, what a blessing. And then, she has 2 kids now, and I was fortunate enough to be like at her first delivery. So alhamdulillah, these are things that, these are blessings. They're blessings, and it's a blessing for us to be a part of that.
Wow. How does it feel to know that you were someone's answered prayer?
It's interesting. One of the du'ats that she made, because once we were at the masjid, and, she was, after salah, she was kind of sitting and making du'a. And I kind of joked with her after, and I was like, well, make sure you make du'a for me too. And then she said, oh, Khadija, I was making du'a for you. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, do you want to know what I was saying? And I said, what? She said, I made du'a that for Allah to let the angels welcome you in heaven the way that you welcomed me into your home. And I said, you know what? All you need to do is just keep making du'a for me, and I'm good. I don't need anything else. So that's why I say some of it is also selfish, because I really feel blessed to have these experiences.
How was her first day at your home?
It's hard when you first have a youth that's placed in your home. But it's definitely harder for them, right? Because they're coming to a new home. You have to kind of explain to them, the dynamics of the home, kind of the rules of the home, the expectations of the home. So it can be overwhelming, I'm sure. So
you tell her so what I'm thinking of is like the initial conversation that you have with her. Like, what do you tell her? How do you make her feel welcome? How do you, I don't know if the word is set expectations or set boundaries. I'm not sure. Like, again, this is very foreign.
It's important to say what the expectations are, kind of what the rules of the home are, because other than like our first foster child, just, having any foster child, like, you don't always know the background they're coming from, like what the rules were in their home. And so it's important to be clear on what's appropriate in your home. So that's actually one of the things that they tell you to do. Part of being a foster parent is that's what you're supposed to do. But as far as making them comfortable, it's really about making sure that you understand what their needs are. So I think trust is a big thing, making sure that they trust you. And I think that's hard for foster youth because many of them have been in several placements, or they've had people in their life that they weren't able to trust, right? And so it's hard for them, I think, to trust people.
So is it a lot of it asking questions at the beginning?
Yeah.
Understanding them?
Yeah. Yeah, and giving them the opportunity to really let you know what they need.
It must be difficult walking into a home. Like, like you said, for you, it's home territory. You know that you and your husband are in control of the house. For them, it's going to be like, what is it now? What is it this time?
Yeah.
How does this stage, like, is this finally when things start looking brighter, or is this still going to be difficult?
Yeah.
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 So I'm just thinking, what could be some words that will maybe ease that pressure off of them?
Honestly, I don't know if it's just words. I think it's also like behavior.
Interesting.
I think, showing them that it's a stable, loving home, showing them that you show up for them, because they may not have had anyone in their life that has showed up for them. So consistency is so important. So I think a lot of it is also behavior, not just what you say to them.
And was that a hard conversation to talk to with your kids?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, my kids at the time were younger. We've been licensed for about 10 years now.
Okay.
So my kids are older now, but when they were younger and when fostering was new to them, it was difficult because kids, it's hard for them to share their parents. Right? I mean, it's one thing to like share your home. Like, we have space in our home. It's okay. That's not an issue, but to share your parents, now I don't have like my mom to myself. Like I have to share my mom with a kid I just met, and children that enter foster care, they have a lot of needs. They also have a lot of appointments, right? And so it's a time commitment. It's a time commitment. So of course the kids see that that's, now something that's kind of being taken away from them. So it's a sacrifice for them as well. And depending on their age, they might not really grasp that. And even if you tell them, well, we're doing this because, inshallah, there's a lot of reward in this, right? And then they think, well, how come nobody else is doing it? Like, yeah.
And it's not something that's tangible for them either.
Right. But I'm a big believer that these are experiences that make you more compassionate adults, that make you more globally minded, and these are good experiences for kids. It's okay to experience some hardship, some difficulty, because our lives are very comfortable.
It's always a struggle because maybe our parents moved here and they had the short end of the stick with immigrating to a new country.
Yeah.
But then all the sacrifices that they did now, and you went through some difficulty, but now at this stage in life, maybe you're comfortable. But you understand that you only got to where you are because of the difficulty. But your kids have zero difficulty.
Yes.
So it's like,
that scares me.
How do you juggle that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that's good.
The comfortableness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I really think to build character and to build compassion, we all need to be exposed to like these realities. We can't just turn a blind eye to it.
It's a very unique way of having the kids experience a different reality.
It's a bit maybe extreme, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're bringing it into their home, into their life. Yeah, it is, but that's what we chose.
And like you said, sometimes siblings between each other find it difficult to share their mom, and they'll fight for her love or their dad's love. Having a stranger in the home, I'm just curious of the conversation that you would have with your kids. Like, what could you tell them in that moment to at least not to make them feel resentment in some way?
I don't know, maybe you should have my kids on the show.
Yeah.
They'll kind of give you their perspective. But honestly, I feel like no matter how much you tell them, it's still hard for them. It's still hard for them. And
do they communicate that with you? Or do you just see that?
Do they? Yeah, no, they communicated it. They do. And I think as a parent, my husband and I, we also know what our limits are, right? So, and I think everybody knows what their limitations are. But yeah, I mean, I wanted my kids to have this experience. And now they're older, and now it doesn't really even faze them. When we get asked, will you take, so-and-so in your home? I ask my kids, and they're like, yeah, they're so used to it now. Yeah. And they're hopeful now too. Because now they're also, my older ones, now they're also considered substitute caregivers. So they can actually help me with things. You know, they can help with driving. They can help with, if I'm not home, then, you know, they can be in my place. So alhamdulillah, they play more of an active role now.
Yeah. And one thing that I'm thinking of is when you have this dynamic of your children and then the foster children, you want to show the foster child that you're special and I am looking at you as if you're one of my children. But at the same time, there's this balance act of you want to show your children that you're still my babies and I still, like, you're my special ones as well, you know?
Yeah, you
And
have to try to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you do.
Is that difficult to do?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Definitely. Because every child has different needs. Yeah. So fair doesn't always look identical for each kid, but because kids have different needs. But yeah, you do want to try and be fair with all of them.
Do you think that how many, if you don't mind me asking, how many foster kids have you hosted in your home since that first one?
I think about 8.
Okay. Do you think that if the first one wasn't as good and made you feel the way that it did, you think you would have done it again? Was it like a trial one, or was it like you're committed, I'm just going to do this, whether this is good or bad, I'm going to do this?
We did not look at it as a trial experience. Okay. We wanted to see it through. Yeah. I mean, there are some people that, you know, with their fostering experience, they take one placement and, you know, they really commit to that one placement. And then after that, they don't renew their license. And so, you know, but I think that that's still wonderful, right? Like I said, everybody knows their limitations. And so, you know, they were able to change the life of one kid. So that's wonderful. But I think for my family, I think fostering is something that we will probably do for as long as we can. And you know, some placements are short placements. Some are long, some are short. Like our first placement, like I said, was about 2.5 years. But some of the kids that we've had, like from Central America, they'll stay with us for a few weeks, a month, and then they're reunited with their families. So, you know, each situation is different. And if you're not ready for like a long-term placement, then you can say, you know, right now I'm only going to do something short-term. And there are options.
Do you get attached to the children?
Absolutely. Oh,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Does it
Yeah.
make it more difficult for them to go back to their parents?
Once we fostered, we had a 3-month-old baby, and she was with us for 3 months. And it was really hard to let her go. But alhamdulillah, she was returned to her parents. So, you know, it's a good ending, but it was still really hard. And my daughter was young at the time, and she became really attached too. But the family has been so wonderful. Even now, I think it's probably been like 5 years or so later. They're still in touch with us, and they still send us pictures. And so, you know, it was tough to let go. But, you know, alhamdulillah, it worked out the way it was supposed to.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you, I know this is a kind of difficult question, but do you pick them up from do you pick up the foster child and you drive them home?
No, usually when they're brought to our home, usually the agency will bring them to our home.
Okay.
And then when they leave our home, no, again, it's through the agency, like the coordination with the agency. Yeah.
And you said it's difficult to get the license?
No, I don't think it's difficult at all.
Oh, okay.
I think if somebody wants to do it, it's not difficult. They say it takes 3 to 6 months. My husband and I were able to do it in 3 months. It's a lot of paperwork, background checks, interviews. You know, you have to submit things like you have to submit your pay stubs and your bills so that they see your finances. So some people find it to be kind of intrusive, but I think it's intrusive for good reason, right? Because you're having a child in your home. But no, I don't think it's difficult. You have to go through some training, and it's doable.
Do you need to be doing well financially? Is that why they take your
No,
pay stubs?
I think they need to make sure that your income can cover your expenses.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And now that's foster care in general. But if we wanted to go back and talk about Muslim foster care specifically, when did you, through this process, these past 10 years, realize that, oh, they're the Muslim kids, what are we going to do about them?
Yeah, that was very early on.
Okay.
That was very early on. And that's why we started the organization we started.
How was that brought to your attention?
What part? What?
The Muslim kids that are in foster homes.
Oh, this was years ago. There was a group that was doing, they were doing some kind of collaboration for aid for the Muslim children that were in foster care. And that really like piqued my attention. Like, wait a minute, there's Muslim kids in foster care? And so when I realized that there were Muslim children in foster care and, you know, there weren't enough homes for them, that's when I felt really compelled. And then when we became licensed and we welcomed our first placement, then it became obvious very early on that there were so many gaps within the Muslim community, not understanding what foster care was, not knowing how to help the kids in foster care. And then that's when I was introduced to somebody named Samina Zahor, and her and I decided to start Muslim Foster Care Association because we realized there was no agency around, no organization around that was doing the work to support the Muslim kids in foster care. And so that's why we started the organization about 10 years ago. And alhamdulillah, now we do, we raise awareness in the community. We give the kids gifts during Eid. We do events with them, things with them throughout Ramadan, and we make sure that their needs are met. Sometimes the kids need help that are in independent living. They might need help with rent 1 month, or they might need help, paying for groceries. Or, we had one boy, he was 18, and he reached out to Muslim Foster Care Association because he was homeless and living in his car. And he was, he sent us pictures and it looked like he was close to having frostbite on his toes. And so alhamdulillah, like he knew to reach out to us because we had given him gifts on Eid. And so he still had the contact information from Muslim Foster Care Association. And alhamdulillah, so we were able to, help him with, finding a place to live and help him with really all the support that he needed to get him back on his feet.
2026 might be the year that you finally start a business. But people think that starting a business is the hard part. It's actually one of the easier parts. The hard part is when partnerships fall through, when you have contract disagreements. There's a lot of paperwork that goes into building an appropriate business. And one way to protect yourself and protect all that money that you're investing into this business is having someone who understands the business world like Amir Maklid does. He handles everything from small business disputes to full-on corporate litigation. He's going to be an asset that will help you grow your business the way that you want it to. If you're in a business, or you're running a business and you feel like something is off, don't wait for things to blow up in your face. Contact Amir Maklid and make sure that all that hard-earned money is not going to waste. Buying a home is stressful. It's often the biggest purchase that you'll ever make in your life. But protecting the home shouldn't be as stressful. Home insurance is one of those things where people set up once and they never look at it again. They might be overpaying and they might not be fully protected, but there's just something that they put on their home because it made the process easier for them in the moment. But what I want you to do is take this very seriously. Call Nasser Insurance Agency and make sure that you have the right protection for your home and make sure that you're not overpaying for it. Nasser Insurance Agency have treated me like family since the day that I signed up with them, and I couldn't be happier with their service. I have all the information to contact them in the description of this episode, so check them out and let's get back to the show. So if the kid is from parents who passed away, those kids go to an orphanage, right? This is not same foster care?
If they're under 18, then they'll enter foster care.
Okay.
If they don't have family around. If they don't have any family around, or let's say there could be like a really close friend that is willing to take them in. But some kids don't have those options available. And so if they don't have anybody near them or a family member that's able to care for them, then they'll enter foster care.
In your experience, what has been the number one thing that the Muslim kids are in need of in foster care? What do they really need?
They need somebody to show up for them. They need stability and consistency. They need mentors. They need people to guide them. Especially the older kids, like the teenagers that are getting close to aging out. They're getting close to going into like independent living and then aging out of foster care. They need a lot of support. I mean, my children were, have always grown up in a stable, home. And I can't even imagine my kids, at the age of 19, 20, 21, moving on without any support from the family. It's a really difficult transition. And so that's an especially sensitive time when they need support.
I'm thinking about the kids that no one really wants. The teenage boys.
Yeah. They need help with employment opportunities, just even like coaching, right? And guidance, mentoring. And we want to keep them connected to the Muslim community because we know that most of them are placed in homes that are of other faiths, right? Or not Muslim. And so that's the reality. But then how can we keep them connected to the Muslim community?
How young do kids understand that they're Muslim? Like a 3-year-old Muslim kid that is taken out of their home. Like, you know what I mean? Like at 3, 4, 5 years old, how much do they understand that they're Muslim and that they can't eat this or they can't eat that? You know what?
Yeah, I think at that age they probably don't really understand. But we know statistics show that kids that enter foster care, they do best when they're placed with families that are similar to their own biological family. Similar to their family in language, in culture, in faith. And then that way, inshallah, if they do return to their parents, it makes the transition back to their parents a lot easier.
Other than people not wanting, not knowing about the foster care system, do you think there's any religious reasons that people might not find it appealing? Especially when you have like hijabi girls.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it is, hijab becomes an issue or like, just making sure that there aren't times when like if it's a teenage boy, there might be a girl in the home, making sure that they're like separate. So there are things, but in my opinion, those things are manageable. I'll be honest with you, my partner, Samina Zahor, she's fostered boys, and she maintains hijab and she's able to find ways where it still works in her home. It still works in her family. So I know but people have different comfort levels. And I know some people will say, no, I don't, want boys in my home. Yeah. That's hard.
It is.
It's really hard. Yeah. I have a teenage daughter, right? And so, I have had placement of a teenage boy before. And he was incredibly sweet. He was so sweet, So alhamdulillah, it worked well for our family.
Do you agree, though, that the babies are the easiest when you had the 3-month-old baby, and that's why people wanted the babies?
I don't know if they're the easiest because, to be honest with you, there's a lot of, like, physical demands, right? Like, when I had the 3-month-old baby, I was waking up in the night to feed her, to change her, and like that was several years ago. I don't know if I still have that in me right now to do that. You know what I mean? So every age kind of has its, I guess, pros and cons, and you have to find what works best for you, what you're able to do.
Do you attack the mental health issue for these Muslim kids, or is that not something?
So kids that are in foster care, they do typically go to counseling.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of part of the
system?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. They do address their mental health. Yeah. I think it does help if you have Muslim mental health, workers that are involved. I think that helps. But yeah.
Muslim mental health, is it easy for a Muslim mental health professional to be in the system like that? Is it?
I think so. Sometimes we've had agencies that will reach out to us and ask if we have anybody within the Muslim community that they can connect like a youth with. So we have had requests like that in the past.
recently you realize that there are a lot of very good Muslim mental health professionals
Yeah.
that are really faith centered.
Yeah.
So those types of mental health specialists could help tremendously,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
as mentors, even as like just showing them that this is not the end of the world for you.
Right.
There is something more positive. I
Right.
think that's like you are wanted. You are not like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. They play an important role, definitely.
Mm. For a foster care home parent, such as yourself, on a personal level, what's the most difficult part of it for Rania?
I mean, if you would have asked me years ago, I would have said, like, the change in family dynamics, like having, kind of balancing my birth children with the foster children in my home. I think I would have found that to be the most difficult.
What about now?
Now I would say the time commitment that it requires.
So that's it.
I mean,
Really?
that's my perspective. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think, as Muslimin, this is in our faith, right? Caring for children, vulnerable children, caring for orphans. This is part of our faith. And I think that Muslimin should really be at the forefront of this. And not just in caring for the Muslim children, but really for caring for all children that are in foster care. I mean, ideally, that's where I would like to see our community.
You know that there's a lot of people I feel like that are interested, but they would rather give their money and help orphans that way. I've seen that a lot, especially when I used to live in Lebanon. What a lot of people used to say is, do you want to tikfal yatim, which I'm not sure what the English translation word for word is. I'll put it on screen, but basically you pay for this orphan to go to school, have food, all
Yeah,
these
you
things.
like financially sponsor them.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what it
Yeah.
is. Financially sponsor the orphan, but they don't live with you.
Yeah.
And I feel like for a lot of people, they think that would be enough because the time thing, actually, now we can kind of go back to what you were saying. The time and the effort piece of, no, this person's going to be inside of your home.
I mean, I think, like I said, we all have our different limitations, right? And I think we all should give what we can. So whether you're giving financially, whether you're giving of your time, whether, whatever you can give, right? And at the end of the day, that's between you and Allah, right? I'm not here to say, but we all need to contribute and support these kids. But I will say, these kids, if giving them money is not the solution, in the sense that they still need a family-like setting, right? They still need to be around a family. They still need to be surrounded by people that really care about them and care about their well-being and care about their future. And that's not something that money is going to provide them, right? That love and that stability, and that parental guidance that they're missing. So, giving donations is wonderful, but we need to go beyond that.
It seems like what you're explaining is very deep. You're going very deep into like the paying to sponsor an orphan is not shallow in of itself, but you're just meeting their physical needs in a way.
You're just touching the surface.
Literally.
Yeah.
But what you're doing when you're bringing them into the home is there's this very famous word that we all like to throw around, but love.
Mm-hmm.
It's that feeling of you are cared for.
Yes.
You are important.
Yeah.
You're not just thrown from place to place to place.
Yeah.
And I think that's what surprised me in this conversation.
Yeah.
And the ability to do that, I'm still finding it difficult to wrap my head around because I feel like human instinct is to care for your own children, like you're the mama bear.
And we do have a responsibility to our own children. Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
But we can't forget the other kids as well.
Because you're right, in a ideal Muslim society, or if we're following the rules of Islam. At the time of the Prophet would not have left these. He wouldn't have left these children, right?
Yeah.
To be in houses where they could probably eat pork, where they can't pray, when they can't observe hijab the way that they want to. He wouldn't have left them. So why are we going to leave them?
Yeah. Yeah. And we're capable. That's the thing. You know, we have the community, we have the resources, we have what it takes. So what's stopping us?
You know, it's easy to say that we're not able to, but from someone that has done it 8 times now, I think you're a good person to relieve some of the tensions. Like, what are some of the misconceptions that people might have about foster care that you can break right now?
What are the misconceptions? I mean, maybe kind of what you were touching on, that the kids, like, if people are afraid of the kids, right? I've never had a foster youth or met a foster youth that I was like, that I feared. I mean, I think at the end of the day, they're kids. And I think what I've seen is, like, it's really incredible what a stable, loving home can do for the child's, like, trajectory in life. It I don't know if I'm saying it right, but there's, you know, it's not like the money that, or the materialistic things. It's really having somebody in their life that shows up for them. So I don't really know what the misconceptions of foster care are. Maybe you can tell me. Maybe I'm so immersed in foster care that I'm not really familiar what the misconceptions are.
I think what you just mentioned is probably one of the big ones. Is what if they pose a threat to my own children? What if I'm not able to treat them fairly? Maybe I can't treat my children fairly. I think these are the things that come to mind right away.
But I think we still have a
Getting your partner on
responsibility.
board as
Yeah,
well.
but I think we still have a responsibility to try. And I would even tell people, if they're not ready for a long-term, you know, placement, commitment, then I would consider doing respite care, which is like temporary foster care. So, you know, maybe another foster family needs help, like if they're traveling, and because if you travel internationally, the foster youth can't travel with you, and so they need to stay, like, in another home. So it's just temporary foster care is respite care. So I would at least encourage people to try respite care to get kind of a feel for what it's like. And maybe if that's all that they're comfortable with, then that's fine too, you know? But at least to try.
Why do you think that love, that environment is so important to the children? Like, after they stay at your place and you feel them, you feel their demeanor change, you feel their morale change. Why do you think that is?
I mean, I think for a lot of foster kids, maybe they've never experienced that. Maybe this is their first time, you know, experiencing, like, a stable, loving home. And that's why I always think, you know, however short a child stays in my home, I always hope that at least they leave my home with that memory of what a stable, loving home is like. So that, you know, inshallah, they have that in the future when they start their families.
So you would be that standard of, this is how a home should be, in a way.
I don't know if I want to be the standard,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I know I'm not perfect. But I think you know, everybody should have that experience and know what that feels like. And I think that goes a long way for kids. And they feel it. Kids know if they're safe in your home. You know, I had like a 3-year-old, and I had a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old that were with me. And, you know, they didn't like to sleep alone. And so and I was a stranger to them, but they insisted on sleeping next to me at night. And so I would let them fall asleep next to me, and then I had like a small mattress next to my bed. Once they fell asleep, I would put them on the mattress. But, you know, I was a stranger to them, but they insisted that they sleep next to me, and not only sleep next to me, I actually had to have my arm around them. You know, they needed that sense of comfort. And, you know, they're young. I think that's part of the futra, right? Just part of, like, something you're born with.
What do you tell your partner to kind of get them on board as well?
What I tell my husband?
Yeah.
You should have him on the show. But I probably nagged him a lot and probably told him, that we really didn't have a reason not to do it, and he couldn't really give me a good reason not to do it. And so, because when you do the training and the paperwork and everything, both spouses have to be a part of the process. And he has a really busy schedule, so for him to agree to be a part of that process really was a big deal. But then, once he did it, he felt the same sense of conviction. And, same thing whenever we get a call or can you take this child, he always says, well, we have to do it. Like, if we don't do it, what's going to happen? Where's the child going to go?
What were his fears at the beginning?
I think he was worried about the family dynamics. Our children were young at the time, and I think he was worried how that would change, like, our family home. And it does change your family home. It does, absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely a risk. Is every time I think about it, it just seems like a risk. Like, what if that traumatizes my kid moving forward?
I think you also have to have, like, faith in Allah that if this is something that Allah is asking us to do, then we have to have faith. Like, we have to have tawakkul and faith that this, is good for us.
That's very true too.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Because you're not always going to have all the answers, right? And sometimes you just have to kind of take a risk and just know that, inshallah, Allah is supporting you.
It's different than, I guess, someone getting like a nanny to the home because they want some time off or whatever the case might be, and then something bad happens and then they're like, oh man, what did I do? But in a situation like the one you're explaining, it's really pure, and it takes a lot of, I mean, I know you said that it's selfish in a way, but doing the work is really selfless. Taking care of a child that is not yours is a very difficult thing to comprehend. Like, people can barely babysit their nieces and nephews for a little bit.
Bring them to my house. Yeah.
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 For the kids that Muslim foster care have dealt with, have you seen those positive outcomes now? How long has the organization been
We've been around almost 10 years.
Yeah, so in these 10 years, have you seen the positive outcomes of the work? And can you share some stories maybe of that?
I mean, they're not always just, there are stories of, the foster youth themselves, but I also think there's stories of, like, the change that we've been able to bring about within the agencies, right? Like, our relationship with the agencies. They're able to see that we're able to do work that they were never able to do.
Like what?
Right? Just because they just didn't know. Like, a lot of it is education, right? Educating people on how to care for a Muslim child. Because if the Muslim child sees that you understand them, then they're going to be, that's going to help with the relationship. So I think, the relationship that we have with the agencies and with the foster families, I think that that's really powerful. What other change? Positive outcomes. Now, for example, when it's Eid, we're able to streamline these Eid gifts to all 240 Muslim children in foster care in Michigan. We have the process down. Now the agencies, they know us. So every year they know to submit to us, like, their list of who we need to give a gift for. Alhamdulillah, we know, the agencies know that when a Muslim child enters foster care, they know to reach out to us so that we can try to help place that child. And even if we can't place them in a Muslim home, at least we can start a relationship with that foster family and with that child so that we can stay with them while they're in foster care to make sure that their needs are being met.
Knowing what you know now, if you would go back to that first foster child, would you have done anything differently?
Nothing really comes to mind, to be honest with you. Yeah, nothing really comes to mind.
That's good.
Yeah. Maybe there's something I can't, but nothing really comes to mind, to be honest with you. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there one child that stuck with you or a story that stuck with you? Whether it's through the Muslim Foster Care Association or through someone you fostered yourself?
Yeah, there are a lot of stories. I definitely the kids that have stayed with me, because those are the kids that I know personally. I know like the ins and outs of what, they had to deal with and what they went through. I mean, I can't share everything. It's difficult because, I mean, some of them, I live here locally, and so some of the cases might be familiar to some people. So it's difficult to speak about them.
But what about the story stuck with you?
I think we need to know that our Muslim community is not immune to, issues that lead kids to be taken into foster care. We need to be aware of that.
Abuse.
Yeah. And there's different kinds of abuse. I think we really need to be like even alert and not turn a blind eye to things. We don't know what happens in the homes, right? But sometimes you see some red flags, and I think it's important to just be aware. I think another one is how people around the world live. Like for the children that have been placed with me that, lived in other countries and then were brought to the U.S., just really remembering how people around the world live. Some of them live in refugee camps and then they come to the U.S. And, they don't have all the luxuries that we have. And that's actually one of the things I was really happy that my children were exposed to. For them to see that kids around the world grow up very differently than how they're growing up. And for them also to see, the kids that came from Central America, what their journey was like, crossing from Central America to the U.S. as a 4-year-old, as a 5-year-old. And then once you cross, to be separated from your family and to be taken to, one of the shelters. I don't know if you ever saw them on the news. It's very scary. So we live very privileged lives. And, in a sense, we're kind of in a bubble. So I think it's important to remember how other kids are growing up in different parts of the world.
How has Ranya changed in these past 10 years?
I think fostering has really broadened my perspective on things. I think...
In what way?
It gives you insight into how people live, right? You think everybody lives like you, right? Everybody lives like us, but no, people live very different lives. How else has it changed me? That's a good question, because I don't think I've ever reflected on that.
It's a good reflection.
Yeah.
Like looking back at Ranya 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago.
I know not everybody agrees with what I do.
Okay.
I know not everybody agrees with, why are you fostering, or, you should focus on your own family. Why are you doing this? So maybe in some ways I've learned to, really listen to like my own conviction and not necessarily what other people try to influence. And it's really led me to meet some amazing people, and I just feel so blessed to have, these people in my life. Other foster families, foster kids, it's been quite an experience. And I can't imagine not having that in my life. Yeah.
Because it would have to have changed the way that you go about your day-to-day life, the way you see people, the way you interact with people.
Yeah. I'm more aware now if I see, if I'm out in public and I see the way that somebody is responding to their kid, and I've seen that, where somebody has hit their kid in front of me, or even, outside of the U.S., I see people, the way that they abuse their kids, and they do it very blatantly, like in other countries. So that's something I'm probably more alert to. Yeah.
What's one thing that we didn't talk about today that you think we should have?
I think just continuing this conversation. I think it's really wonderful that, you're addressing this topic, and I think we need to keep addressing this topic and not forget about it. But what's one thing that we need to talk about that we didn't? I think it would be wonderful if you ever had like a foster youth on your show, to get their perspective.
Someone that has been in the system, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, as a community, we need to keep like learning and keep growing. We need to do better for the foster kids. We don't always know how to interact with them, how to engage with them. I know people mean well, but sometimes when they approach a foster youth, I've seen things that are really like off-putting, like, oh, you're the foster kid, right? It's like, well, that's not how you want to address them. So something even as simple as that. I mean, we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go.
It doesn't seem like we even started, to be honest with you.
Yeah. 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 We have a long way to go.
No, but I agree with you. I think that usually what will happen, for example, after this is that I'll be watching this episode again, and then I'll have like 20 more questions that I probably should have asked.
Yeah.
And I think that's good because that forwards the conversation, because that means that we have to sit again and we have to talk about more things, but as a base, as like an intro to the topic, I think that there are people a part of the Muslim community that are forgotten. Like these kids are forgotten.
Yeah. Because they can't advocate for themselves, right? They don't have that voice. So who's going to be their voice?
That 5-year-old that should be eating halal does not know that.
Oh, well, I had a 12 and a 13-year-old. They were cousins. They stayed with me. They had a foster family that was non-Muslim, but they stayed with me for respite. They hadn't eaten chicken or meat in over a month because the family that they were with wasn't Muslim, and they were requesting, halal meat, and they weren't given that. So when they came to stay with me for a little bit, that was their first time eating meat and chicken. And they were before that, they were eating like rice and beans.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually that's one of the things that Muslim Foster Care Association does is we have a halal meat program. So we do offer it for any of the youth that would like it. So we have agreements with some local butcher shops. And so the youth can just go there once a month and pick up halal meat and chicken.
Are the kids protected in the sense of abuse from the foster parents in case they are abused?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of like the checks and balances. Yeah, the agencies do, that is part of their role, is ensuring that the foster family home is a safe home. I mean, I'll say it's not perfect, of course, right? But yeah, that is part of their responsibility.
This is fascinating.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I'm probably going to leave here and remember other things that I should have said. Some of the questions you stumped me on, but I'm going to go home and think about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Ranya, thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And thank you so much for all that you're doing.
Of course.